Okay, welcome back again. This time we'll do a little bit different video from the previous videos. We'll go for the carrier rating part. So obviously interesting for people in nullsec space that want to go for the bigger thingies to kill the rats in the game. First things first, we've got our carrier here. Oh, it's a nice little Nidhoggur. First thing you will notice when you undock, first thing you will notice is that the carrier doesn't look that different from the normal ship. But you don't have the nice little drone menu anywhere. That is because the drones or fighters are behind this little button down here. If you click it, you can see the fighter menu. From the fighter menu you can start your fighters, you can go into the fighter bay if you have to replenish the fighters, or if you have to want to switch the fighters to another type. And then you have to the recall fighters button. All well and good. One simple problem. If you want to use the ship modules, you have to go back to the ship menu. And if you want to use the fighters, you have to go back to the fighter menu. Not that good if you don't want to misclick and lose fighters, or worst case, you have to get off grid fast because someone entered the system and you will get a little problem there. So first things first, there's a nice little undock button. If you click that undock button, you see the fighter menu went away. Nice thing is, if you click this and hold this, you can put the fighter menu wherever you want. I basically normally have it here. So now you have your ship capabilities and your fighter capabilities all in one go. Next thing, what can you do with fighters, with carriers? Well, a very nice thing to kill with carriers are one of the biggest sites in nullsec. Those are the havens. So let's go for the anomalies. Let's align for the haven. And now we wait. While you're waiting, you can start all the modules you need to be effective. So in my case, it is a sensor booster and 2 tracking links. The sensor booster to get a better locking, because it has a scan resolution script, faster locking, and the tracking link to have the fighters hit even the smaller targets like frigates and destroyers. So looks like we're almost aligned. Now don't jump the carrier in at 0. You will really get into trouble if you get unlucky. Best thing, go right click anomaly warp within 50.
Warp drive
and now
active.
we wait. On a side note, if you are in a system that has several gates, it is advisable to either use an Intel tool to use the Intel channels of your coalition, or to use scouts in the adjacent systems so that you know when something is coming up. Another tip, if you are warping to a site, go to your probe scanner and kill the anomalies so that you only see the cosmic signatures. This way you can see when something pops up that may be a wormhole. Also, next little trick, go to your overview and the local, click in the column with the players, hit Control A, and by that you have all the actual players marked, and you will see if someone new comes in. Okay, now we're in the site. We're ending the warp. It tells us, oh, there's a nice little structure in it. Let's see what that is. First thing you do, you go to the Fortizar or Astros or whatever you, Fortizar would be best. You align to the Fortizar you came from. After that, you can start the fighters. And then you tell your fighters to go straight to your targets. Easiest way to do that is to hit W to orbit and then either hit it on the overview if you don't have to lock it locked already, or if it is locked, you hit something you want to orbit them around. That's very important because if the fighters kill something, they will immediately stop, and shortly after that, they are most likely dead because all the rats will hit them. So then you go target, kill target. One thing is very important. Make sure that if you want to do the orbit something, uh, the orbit something order, always make sure that your ship isn't marked. Because as you can see, I have the fighters marked. There's a little blue dot around it. Now if I hit the ship, now every command I'm giving, I'm only giving to the ship. The fighters don't get any command. Again, use Shift or Control to mark them again. Now I'm only giving the commands to the fighters. There's one exception. If in this state you click a station and say align to, or you say anything align to, only your carrier will align to that, because only the carrier is capable to do that. The fighters don't align to anything. So by that you can use the nice little mechanic. So you have the fighters always marked and only work with the fighters, but for the general directions like the align, so that if someone comes in, you can recall the fighters and straight jump out. It is only the carrier that is affected. So basically now we're going to kill what's in this site. And as you can see, I clicked the frigates first, and the battleships got locked first. So that's because of if you've seen the video about the fitting, about the stats from the fittings, that is how you can see how scan resolution and signature radius come into play if it goes to locking something. And it's always a good advice, especially in the normal sites, so everything that doesn't have something like hidden or forlorn in its names, to first kill the small stuff, then kill the big stuff. Mm, at the moment, this is my way of playing the sites. I'm not speedrunning them. I'm not optimizing for tick. I'm just want a chilled way of making some ISK. And that's the way why I most of the time use all three squadrons on one target, even if it is just a small frigate or just a cruiser. Coming to talk about the weaponry of the fighters, you have two kinds of weapons. You've got the primary weapon, which is for the Templars, for the Sunshine Space, is the lasers. And you've got rockets. So you always have a primary weapon and some missile weapon. The missile weapon has ammo. If it's done, it's done. It can only be refilled if you call back the fighters. You should be very cautious about that. Don't recall the fighters inside a site, because if you do, they are only capable to come out again if they are completely refilled. And that might take a while. So try to time the use of your missile salvos. So for me, in this case, for me it works best if I go first wave 1 missile, second wave 1 missile, and after that it is 2 missile salvos each. And as you can see, the battleships are breaking down pretty fast. What else? Yeah. Your fighters are a little bit like little frigates, if you can. Yeah, the size comparison is not that bad. So they also have a status bar, but they only have one status bar. Every status bar is one fighter. You have in light fighters, you have 9 in total in a squad. Every bracket lost is one fighter lost, and that also means DPS lost. So that's the reason why you have to make sure to always have them orbiting something. So either you directly orbit enemies that spawn into the site, or you try to orbit wrecks in the site, or in this case you can orbit. Wait, so in this case you can orbit the coral structure here, or the pirate gate that is in the middle. So let's see, we are. This should be third last wave. Third last wave is interesting because your fighters can also be attacked by the rats. I think I can show you that in the second last wave. Because in a haven, the third and second last wave are always waves with elite frigates or elite cruisers in it, and they do factional electric warfare. So in this case, it is the Sanchas, they do tracking disruption, which is pretty bad if you have something that uses anything other than rockets. Because they can effectively take out a complete squadron, which is a whole lot of DPS. If you look up here, against battleships, it can be around 14 to 1800 DPS. So let's see. Yeah, this is the second last wave, and come on. You see, here's a little icon above the squadron here, which tells me that all the elite frigates are tracking disrupting them. And as you can see, they completely lose the damage on them. That's the reason why it takes longer to take them down, other than them being elite cruisers. Good thing is, if you remove 3/4 of the elite ships, they normally lose they lost the electronic warfare measures. So if we have grinded through them, there's almost nothing left that can hinder us from finishing the site in an orderly fashion. As I said, you can probably do that faster, you can probably do that more optimized. And again, as I said, also, I don't really care about that. I don't need the tank 120 or 130 million ticks. 120 or 130 million per hour. Sorry. It's normally, if you have a good organized system and a speed fit carrier, you can go up to 50 million ticks. And depending on what you have to pay to the co-op that you're in, it ends up around 120 to 130 million, maybe 140 if you're really fast and it is a good SAC system, a security status system. But as you can see, I'm going through the enemies pretty quick. And I think with the video I would say I will be around 12 to 13 minutes for one site. Come on. If you're wondering what these guys up here doing there, because it is a purely PvE fit, and you really don't need an newt in against rats. It is if someone, if you get jumped and it is just something small, you can try to newt it to oblivion. If it is just something tackling you. If it is a saber, well, most of the times rip. If you don't have a good defense, but it is, I don't know, sometimes it tries to tackle you. You have a good chance to get it neutered off and get off. Also, I highly recommend to use class-specified Afterburner or micro warp drive, because in case you are jumping into a site and at that moment a wormhole opens and someone enters the system, you still have a sizable amount of time to be lucky. And if you hit the new site, you instantly say, okay, warp me to my safety structure. And you immediately let the propulsion mod run for exactly one cycle. Because if the propulsion mod breaks down and stops the cycle, you will be exactly at a little bit above 75% of your max speed, and that is the warp speed. That means after the propulsion mod runs off, you've got an insta warp, which in my case, I think is about 15 or 16 seconds, which is way better than the align time of the carrier itself. So that is something that will save your asses. So, okay, now you've seen no enemies coming back. You just hit either recall of fighters or Shift R, which is normally the default for calling back drones and fighters, or at least for me it is. And if you have done that, you can go on and either align to a new site, or as I'm going to finish off the video, you are saying, okay, let's go dock up.
Warp drive active.
So, hope this helps a little and helps preventing you from getting killed. Hope this also shows how carriers work, and if it is an interesting goal for you to go to, or if you're all more comfortable with something like a rattlesnake or some what will I say? Some other means of ratting. So that's it for now. Have a good day. Fly safe.